Today we're drawing a few strange looking potions in Procreate on iPad. Well, hello there, I'm Pt.2. This is sort of a continuation of last week's video where I drew cute mountains. The goal of this mini-series is to draw things everybody else draws too, instead of weird prompts like a fleshy bus, a shrimp woman, or a demon with house cats. I just want to see if more people are interested in seeing things they've already seen 1,000 times. God, this is hard to say. Let's get started with the first vial out of 2. I'm gonna go in order of difficulty. Also, I didn't screen record this one. First off, I'm using the drawing guide option of Procreate. This allows you to get a perspective grid you can easily move around. I have turned on the assisted drawing option on my layers, making it so I physically can't not draw along the lines of the perspective grid. This makes the lines perfect, in a sense. With this, anybody can reproduce the exact same drawing I'm currently making. On the first layer, I made the foreground of the bottle, and on another layer, I drew all the lines that are going to be in the background. A few layers more and we have a neck and a plug. The point of having different layers is so I can color all the background lines in grey rather than black, to imply these are behind a few layers of glass. Drawing the bottle was very simple using the guides, you really can't mess up. To imply the thickness of the glass side, I made sure the red liquid doesn't fill the entirety of the shape of the bottle. After drawing the inside, I'm filling the entire shape of the bottle with the greyish blue. That's behind the liquid. Then I'm coloring the flat side of the glass with the bluer tone. This implies the glass is grayer where it's thicker, like on the corners. To add the final touch, to make sure it's registered as glass, of course we have to add highlights. These are the white streaks on the panels. Note that the highlights in the background are less white, of course. And that is the first magical potion we can draw today. In a few seconds we can start the second one, but first let's recap some of the tips used. The most important is using the assisted drawing option. This is almost cheating, but it's great for a quick sketch. You'll be a master of perspective in no time. Secondly, paying attention to the thickness of the glass. From the point of view, the corners will have more matter, and so will be less transparent. Right, now that you have all of that in mind, let's move on to the second strange potion we'll brew today. So just like the first drawing, I'm starting by using a perspective grid. But it's not for the bottle. The bottle will be round. No, instead I had the idea of adding something weird inside the bottle. Since it's a potion, it needs to be weird. At first I wanted to draw a 2D representation of an hypercube, but it turned into just 2 cubes, one inside the other. I didn't want to overcrowd it too much, this was already enough. So I'm drawing 2 cubes using the perspective grid. Again, it's something anybody can do. Once the cubes are done, I move on to another layer. Let's start working on the spherical bottle. From the first drawing, we learned that it's important to keep the thickness of the glass in mind. Here, I'm being generous. I'll leave a lot of space between the 2 circles used to build the bottle. Since the bottle is viewed from the side, the bottleneck is perfectly flat. In that specific case, you can even cut the process short and only draw half of it and mirror the other side to ensure it's perfectly identical. Let's add a cork and we're done with the line art. Next up is coloring. There are 5 main layers to take into account: the liquid, the glass borders, the glass middle, the cubes and the cork. Now each of these layers has a lot of underlayers we'll work on next. For example, the liquid has the bubbles and the 2 parts where the level fluctuates at the top. In these areas, the quantity of liquid is lower, so it's only natural for it to be a bit more transparent. For the glass middle, in order to give the impression of the bottle being spherical, I decided to add a semblance of a glow, so that the rims are lighter than the middle. This is, I imagine, a good approximation of how light would interact with the glass. And if it's not, it's fine. This is a magical potion, so it might be glowing naturally. We're here to have fun, not to calculate the refractive index of glass or understand how optics work. For this rendering process as a whole, if I'm being honest, I couldn't tell you exactly how I did some of the things I did. This drawing, like a lot of digital art, is just fudging around with layer styles and see what looks good. Sometimes you have a clear image of what it's supposed to look like the first vial I drew, and sometimes you let the process take you along. Some things are easy to understand though. For example, the cubes need to intersect the surface of the liquid, since they are not entirely submerged. Right where the two intersect, the liquid won't be as dense. Since we can see the cube through the liquid, you should still be able to see a bit of the orange coloration of the cube. In these places, I will lower the opacity of the liquid. See, it all makes sense. Similarly, near the cork, you can still see the cork through the neck of the bottle. To give the impression of a rounded neck, I am gradienting the opacity. This way, the neck of the bottle doesn't look as flat as before. Talking about flat, I think the entire drawing looks a bit too smooth and perfect. This is a vial of potion brewed by an old witch somewhere probably, so it needs to be dusty and old and gritty. Perfect gradients and uniform tones won't do. To remedy that, I'm grabbing a texture brush, lowering the opacity and adding multiply layers everywhere. The goal is to shade everything the way I would shade a sphere. The bottom will be darker and I will add a big white curve highlight at the top. Do that on every layer and now everything looks a bit dirty and grainy. That's the look. For the final touches, now that I've already done some highlights, let's continue. The cube is made of gold, which is a highly reflective shiny metal. With the glass highlights, I've already decided that the light came from the top left of the picture. Following that line of reasoning, I'm drawing light streaks across the cubes using a clipping mask. These light streaks are exactly the same ones I did in the first drawing earlier. To not draw too much attention to them, don't do just one streak, but at least 3 I would say. Have one streak bigger than the others, and there you have passably good highlights. For the background, you couldn't make things simpler. I used a gradient, then added very soft shadows under the vial, and an even softer light in the corner. This way the whole drawing ties together. The focus is on the vial, not the background, so it's important to have it, but it's not less important to make it very simple. Don't draw attention to where you don't want the attention to be. I guess that's a good advice for any drawing in general. Don't attract the viewer's eye to places you don't want them to look. That's one of the many principles that will help you make good-looking art, even when you're unsure of whether or not it's really good. If you've followed this half-assed tutorial to the end, you now probably have a nice drawing of a bottle in your portfolio, like every other artist. This really is something everybody draws at some point. I'm used to drawing weird things, so this short video series is a way for me to see if my audience also like conventional drawing ideas. Things you would see if you type easy Procreate drawing in Google Image. If you enjoyed this type of things, I still have quite a few ideas in mind, like an isometric room or a tree of life. If you have other prompts that you feel you've seen 1,000 times, please tell me in the comments and I will consider them. Subscribe to see these ideas come to life and also for weirder illustrations in the future. I'm Pt.2. I have social media for you to follow me on and I'll see you in a few days. Bye!